Welcome back to the Burnt Pancakes podcast. I am your host, Katie Fensky, and I am here to remind moms that everyone burns their first pancake. Today, I have on a mom of 10, Laura Hernandez. That's right, 10 children. You would think her house is chaotic and crazy, but she has created systems to turn that chaos into calm. And she's going to share those with us. This is going to be a two-part podcast. And on the first part, she's sharing how to keep a clean and tidy house in the midst of motherhood. She's going to give us all her tips on keeping your house organized and clean. Well, hi, Laura. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. Okay. So in the intro, I said that you are a mom of 10, and I'm sure you get, comments all the time like, whoa, 10, that's a lot. So what are the age ranges? Like, what's the age gap for your kids? And
Yeah, so the comment I get the most is they're like 10. Like, did you say 10? Like, they can't understand what
wait, that's
number I just said.
10? You have 10?
I have to like hold up both of my hands. Yes, 10. Which I think is so fascinating. Everybody's like so baffled. I mean,
Did you come
obviously
from
it's
a big family or?
no, well, we had 4 kids in our home and
Okay.
it was a big family, like in our neighborhood, in our school. Like
Yeah.
we had a lot of kids in our home, but now I'm like, meh, 4 was nothing. Um, Not in like if you have 4 kids and it feels overwhelming. Don't hear me say that incorrectly, but just every number you add to it, you're like, oh, wow, 2 is a piece of cake, right?
Yeah.
It just feels always easier when there's less. So
Yes. What's your
that's what I mean.
oldest and youngest?
Our oldest is 17 and our youngest is 3.
Wow. And you said that you adopted some. So how many are adopted?
We did. We adopted a sibling group of 3, and they kind of fit right in there with, so our adopted 3 are 12, 11, and 10. And then
Oh,
we have an 11-year-old biologically, and then we also have a 9-year-old biologically. So they're just all like
we just fit
kind of
right.
crammed in there, this little
Wow.
cohort of people. So yeah.
So I get asked a lot. So I only have three. Like I'm tapped out at 3, but I get asked a lot, what was the hardest transition? So for you, like, was it 7 to 8? Was it 9 to 10? What's the hardest transition?
Oh, I'd love to tell you. So we went in a 6-month period, we went from having 4 kids to 8 kids. And that was my hardest transition. We had 4 biological. We were living up in Seattle. We used to live down in Dallas. And when we
Okay.
were down in Dallas, we fostered a little buddy named Andrew. And he came to us straight from the hospital. And we fostered him for 8 months and he went back to his mom.
Oh,
Meanwhile, she had 2 more kids. We had 2 more kids, which brought us up to 5.
okay.
And that summer of 2014, they were back in care and they were looking for a permanent placement for the 3 of them. And so we said, we'll do it. Like I mean, Andrew was like he was like our son, right?
Oh,
Like we
I
wanted
can't
to
imagine.
have the,
So you raised him from 0 to, you said 8 months. It was
Mhm.
8 months. Was that so hard to give him back at that point? Because you like
It
bonded with
was,
this little baby.
yeah. I mean, it was like losing a child.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Just,
Okay.
um, and I say that not in a way to like, I feel like there's this, often when we talk about fostering, families are like, I could never do that. I could never. And I'm like, yeah, it's really hard, but these kids need you to attach to them. Like they need attachment. Like they're like for the betterment of society as a whole, if we're just going to take a big picture look at this, like we need them to attach. We need them to have that connection with people. And
Yeah.
so if we're all too scared to take that leap or take that step of
Go all
attaching and
in.
having our hearts broken a little bit,
Mhm.
yeah. That's not a soapbox I normally get on, but there you go. Yeah. So we heard that they're, looking for a permanent placement. So we said, we'll do it. So we moved back to Dallas, just had our 5th, right? So
Wow.
brand new baby, all these little people. We didn't have a job yet. My husband had a job still in Seattle, but he didn't have a job in Dallas yet. And we moved into this rent house and we did foster care training all over again. And at that 6-month mark, we got all 3 of them and they were all 3 placed in our home. But during that time period of going from 4 kids to 8 kids, it felt like I was thrown into the deep end and had no idea how to swim.
Yeah.
I felt before, like even when we had added that 5th, I felt like I had things pretty under control as a mom. Like I had systems in place. I knew what I was doing. I felt confident as a mom. And then all of a sudden it was like, we've just got to survive. Like we've got to make it to bedtime, right? And
Yes.
so that
You're
survival,
in survival
like,
mode. That's my
yeah,
transition from 0 to 1. I was pretty much in survival mode.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a great, like, that's an amazing place to be, right? Because we know we just
Mm-hmm.
have to get through the day, and like, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to live there. And so I
Right.
started looking for things and podcasts and books and all the things, and nothing out there for like 8 kids under 7 who have caseworkers in and out of their home, who homeschool, who also
Yes.
do all these therapies and have therapists. And I mean, just our house was so different and chaotic. And I was like, we got to figure this out. Like, we've got to do something. So that's kind of where the systems came in place, where I started putting things in place little by little, just be like, hey, you know what? I want to be intentional with my kids with this, and we've got to create space for that. So how are we going to do that? And then the things that didn't really matter, just getting rid of those altogether. And then slowly, little by little, lightening my load to where we got to a place of peace and calm in our home. And not that they're like beautiful, angelic children running around all the time, doing what I want them to do, but we can be resilient from the chaos. So when something crazy happens, we have a plan for getting out of it. We have systems in place for food and for getting places and prepping for the next day, all those things. So it just helps life go so much smoother. And having all those decisions already made and already in a system, like, lessens my load so much so that I can show up as the mama that I really want to be.
Right. I do feel like my house is very chaos most of the time. So tell me a little bit about your systems that help create calm. What are some things that, like, easy things we can do to implement in our home to create calm?
Yeah. So, well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
What areas feel chaotic?
Um, Children's behavior, constantly trying to keep up with the mess or just the organization of the home. Um, I would say food, like feeding my children. I've never been one that, like, food prepped. I don't prep on Sundays. So then it comes down to, like, it's 7 o'clock. We got to make dinner.
Yeah,
Like, I haven't planned anything, or it's time to go to the grocery store and I did not make a list. Like, those are some things.
that's good. Okay. So, the reason I ask is because every family is so different. And so, your chaos, I could
Would
give
look
you a
so
system, but
different.
that's not helpful.
Noise chaos is another one. Like the noise
Yeah.
level, I'm like, how do you get that down without yelling? I don't want to be quiet.
Yeah. So here, let's start
Okay.
with the mess, just because
Okay.
that's a fun one. I think less stuff. It's a really great place to start.
I do think
Just
we have
all
too much.
around.
We have too much. It's almost overwhelming for me, and I don't even want to, like, go in their room anymore.
Yeah. And what I found with kids is when there's so much stuff and it's so overwhelming and the toy baskets are overflowing, they don't play with anything because it's just too much, right?
Right.
And so the less we can have, the better it is. The more creative play we can find with our kids, and the easier it is to keep up with everything and keep it clean and
Mhm.
keep it organized. And I think bringing your kids in on those decisions and saying, you know what, guys, we have too much stuff and we need to cut it down by half. So let's look at all your stuffed animals. What stuffed animals
Oh
can we
my
get
God,
rid
the
of
stuffed
today?
animals.
Or,
Yes.
yeah,
But
and you
every
don't even have
single
to say
one,
get rid of.
they don't play with them for a year. And then you go, okay, we're going to donate these. Or we just had a garage sale recently, and every stuffed animal was like their favorite one. Oh my God, my rabbit, not buy this. I'm like, you haven't looked at these in forever. Oh,
Yes, yes, the
do you
stuffed
do that?
animals.
Like, do you do that every Christmas? Is there like a time frame that you're like, oh, it's summertime, it's time to do a little clean out? How often do you do like a toy clean out?
Yeah, well, often. And I think that it's like, you know what? There's all this stuff everywhere and they haven't played with it. Like, we got these marble run things, and
Mm-hmm. So
it was
cool,
fun
but
for
yeah.
a hot minute. Yeah. And then there's just pieces of it all over the house. And so
Yes. It's the
we
little
just,
pieces that, like, I can't put them all back together. Yes.
yeah. And it almost feels wasteful to be like, we just got this and here I am, like,
Mm-hmm.
trying to ship it out. But the truth is, nobody's playing with it and it's just driving me crazy. So let's get out of that house and bless somebody else, right? Maybe they'll be
Yes.
more organized with their stuff and can figure it out. Um, so we have a continual, like, ongoing goodwill. I want to say
Pile.
basket, but it's more like a
Okay.
big tote. Yeah,
Okay.
that things just go in. So, you know what? That's too small for you. There's nobody to hand it down to. It's going in there. Baby clothes that we're no longer using, like, I'm in there and
Mm-hmm.
the baby's in there, and I'm like, well, you know what? You're not, nobody else is going to be using this. And so it just goes in that pile. So it's just a kind of a constant revolving door of donating somebody going and bringing it to Goodwill and restarting all over again. However, around Christmas time, when we do go Christmas shopping, because I want to get my kids fun things, I want to give them, right? And while we try to keep that to a minimum with 10 kids, even the minimum of like we have a little system for this. We do one thing to wear, one thing to read, one thing to play, and one thing to share. And so the share is like Nerf guns or
stuff everyone can use.
Something that everybody can do together. And then there's something to play. Just even looking at that pile, that's 10 new toys, 10 new things that we're bringing in.
And so that I have to store in my house. Yes.
Yes. So that always kind of gives me anxiety. Okay, we got to get rid of stuff. So I'll kind of go in and start peeling back some things and
I feel like I have to sneak toys out. Like one day they saw a big bag in the back of my car and they're like, "What are you doing with my toys?" I'm like, "Oh, we were going to donate them." They're like, "Not this one." So sometimes I sneak them out and they never end up asking. They never notice unless it's like in a bag and it's going out. Yeah.
Yeah. I listened to a lady who, I do this all the time too. And which is why when this lady said this, I was like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, but I still do. She was just talking about like, we wouldn't be happy if like we went into our room and things were just missing.
True. So true.
And I was like, I get it, but my goodness gracious. A lot of times it's just easier.
And sometimes it's easier too. Like I have like a personal attachment to some stuff. So like, it's harder for me. Like, oh, I remember when Ronan played with this one or that. Like,
yeah. But maybe like we could get them to choose their favorites. Like, so instead of like them like looking in the back of the car and saying like, oh, that's my favorite, like having 10 toys out and say, why don't you pick your 5 favorites and the rest are giving away.
Oh, I like that. So like it's giving them like, you can keep some stuff, but which ones are you going to choose to keep? Oh, I like that. Okay. Yeah. I feel like we're going to need to go through our stuffed animal bin today because it's overflowing. It's getting bad.
I can't wait to hear how that goes.
I'll have to sneak some out. Okay. What other systems? So we've got cleaning out toys, weeding down the stuff. What else?
Yeah. And then having set times to actually pick up. So
tell me
I think that everything needs to place, right?
Okay.
And I think that needs to be known to all where that place is. So I love the idea of a really good organized little bookshelf with all the little toys and the right bins and blah, blah, blah. My kids can't do that. Like I've tried and it's just not even worth it.
I've tried that. And so I'm like, there is a place for things, but I think you're right. My kids don't really know that system. I know the system. And when they don't do it right, I go, oh, get out of here. I'll finish cleaning up. Because it's like, that's the costume box. That's not the Lego box.
Yes. Okay. And so I think that having those places and having those spaces is wonderful. But if we can get a little broader with it. So instead of having the people Legos, the red Legos, the blue Legos, like instead of getting really specific, just having a huge Lego bin, that's where Legos go. And we have a basket in the other room that's all Paw Patrol toys. And so everybody knows where the Paw Patrol toys go, right? Yes. And then all the other toys go in a different big basket. And so it's big, it's easy. They're not having to like sort through things to put things away. They can just throw them in there. Things feel picked up. They are picked up. That basket may not look exactly how I'd like it to look, but who cares? Like it's picked up, it's off the floor. I'm not tripping up, right?
Yes. This is what we get with my older son. I'll say, okay, go pick up the room. And he'll just like take everything and just like push it under the shelf or like just throw it up on top of the thing. And so I have to literally go, okay, your job is Legos. Find all the Legos. And the other kid's job is to find like just the trucks and put the trucks away. Because otherwise I find it all like under the rug. I just push it under the rug. And then at that point, it's like the room is just a mess. So I just shut the door and I'll say, I'll deal with it tomorrow. And then I don't. And then it's more of a mess.
Yeah. I love the idea of giving like setting those expectations really clearly on, hey, you're in charge of the Legos. And then adding in the set time of when you guys are going to like do a pickup of your house. And this could be before bed, you do a 10-minute tidy and set an alarm for 10 minutes and everybody has a job that they're supposed to do. We do ours at 5:00. That alarm goes off because I forget to do dinner. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, it's 7:30 and haven't met anybody. Yeah. So 5:00 is when I go in there and I do dinner. Also at 5:00, everybody does their afternoon jobs. And so for us, this looks like we have 3 kind of areas of afternoon jobs that we do. So each kid has a zone that they're in charge of. And so that would be something very specific of like the playroom. the Legos at
Okay.
5 o'clock. That's what you do. Then they're supposed to help prep for the next day. So if they need to get their backpacks ready, lay their clothes out, lay their shoes out, make their lunch, all of those things are on their 5 o'clock job list. And then something for dinner time. So everybody has a dinner job that they're in charge of. So that could be like our 3-year-old puts all the silverware on the table. He loves that job.
Mm-hmm.
Another kid who gets drinks for everybody. And so just delegating those things out and getting real specific in your delegations. Because when you say things like go pick up the playroom, you get results like that,
Yeah.
right?
And then I get upset. Like, oh, I told you to clean it. Why isn't it clean? Yeah. And they just
Yeah,
grumble.
for them, it's too overwhelming. And just like it is for you when you
Which
just
is
shut,
it's
right?
so true. I walk in that room and I feel overwhelmed. Of course, my kids would feel overwhelmed cleaning
Yeah,
it.
it makes sense. But if you can start small and give them just one specific thing that they can focus on,
Mm,
I mean, we have much higher success rate in our home with that.
right. How long have you been implementing this 5 o'clock cleanup? Has this been like a work in progress and now it's like, just runs itself?
Yeah.
Or like how
So
long did it take to like get it going?
um, I'm not exactly sure when we started it, actually. It's probably about 5 or 6 years now.
Okay.
And again, a big reason for that was that I needed accountability getting in the kitchen and starting dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And so then just adding the other things just kind of made sense for us of like we need to have this checkpoint when we're asking them to do these chores, but they don't happen. And then I'm upset with them that they didn't happen. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, again, why am I
It just
expecting
goes
my
around
kids
and around.
to
Yeah.
just show up and be proactive and doing things around the house? I don't know. But that alarm has really, really helped. And you know what? Sometimes we fall off the wagon. Sometimes, we get COVID and nobody does anything for weeks, or
Yes. Or
we
we
get
have baseball
life.
practice and we're not having dinner at home. Yeah. Like,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
A million things come up, but the joy of it is we've set this system up. I've already done all the brain work for it. Kids have their charts with their responsibilities on it. And we use chore charts as in like, hey, this is our contract of what you're expected to do in this home as a family member and as a part of this team. This is what we expect of you.
Okay. So
And
that's
so
what
it's
I was going to
less,
ask you because we've tried chore charts and it lasted like 3 days. So yours is one per kid or is it like a family chart? What do you have?
yeah, we just use one per kid. And that kind of
Okay.
serves as our contract with them of like, hey, every morning, these are the things I expect of you. And
Okay.
it's just setting those really clear expectations with them and for us, right? So we know who's supposed to be doing what. And we don't do any changing up of chores because, oh my goodness, that just
You
breeds,
couldn't, there's no way you could keep track of all that.
it breeds so much chaos. Like not only for me and like I don't know who's supposed to be doing what,
Mhm.
but arguments amongst people of like, you did that last week. I'm supposed to be doing whatever. Like all of that
Got it.
just ceases when you have that set clear expectations and things aren't changing.
Mm-hmm.
It helps build in that consistency. And I know a lot of people are worried about like, well, I want my kid to know how to do these things. I'm like, awesome. Summer is a great time for that. Of
I
like,
was just,
hey,
that
today
was
we're
in my
working
head. I'm
on,
like, I think we're going to start practicing this summer. I'm like, we're going to have some routines
yes,
going on here. Yeah.
yeah, it's such a great space for it. And even just getting in the routine, like even if your afternoon jobs are like at 7 o'clock and in the fall you want it to be at 5 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
just because you have longer daytime or whatever, like, oh my goodness, how amazing that they're going to know when this alarm goes off, this is what's happening. And then
This
this
is
is
your
what happens
space.
next.
Yes.
Yeah, and it sets that routine. They know what to expect, and I think our kids like they desire that routine
Yeah.
and
They
those
say
rhythms
kids love
so much.
structure. They do like structure.
Yeah, yeah, and I
So okay,
always hear that, and I
oh,
think,
go ahead.
oh, sorry, I think I really understood that like that first week of COVID when it was like
There
I
is no
have no
structure.
idea what's happening. Yeah,
Yes.
it felt so overwhelming and so
Mm-hmm.
chaotic. Like my whole body felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's maybe what our kids feel like on the daily if they don't know what's happening, if
Yeah.
they don't know what's coming next, if they don't know where they're going tonight, if they
It's
like all those things have just
unpredictable. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so let me get some like ideas from you. So I have a 3-year-old, an almost 6-year-old, and a 9-year-old. What are some like age appropriate things? Because I noticed like my 9-year-old, I can get him to do stuff, but the 3-year-old just kind of like wanders and isn't really like, I know he's probably capable of helping. What are some like age appropriate chores or tasks that I could assign each one that's like not overwhelming, but doable?
Yes. I have a chore e-guide on the front page of my website. You can easily
Oh,
download it. And it has a list of age appropriate
oh my gosh, I love
activities.
that. I am putting
Very
that description. It's going to be in the description. So it's a guide by age. Is that what?
well, it's a guide on how to kind of set up a chore system in your home. And then at the back,
Mm,
there's like a list of different ideas and stuff.
love it.
It's like
downloading it today.
Perfect. I feel uncertain about like the age because I feel like every
Well,
kid is
every
so
kid's
different, right?
different.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but like I could have a 9-year-old. Let me rephrase this. I have a 10-year-old who functions more on a 3-year-old level. So giving her jobs
To
that are
adapt it. Mm-hmm.
like really easy, really, really easy. That's how she's going to succeed. And that's how she's going to be a team player. And that's okay. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So just keeping that
Do
in
you
mind if
explain to your kids that like
he's,
fair looks different? They say that's not fair. He had to clean this. You're like, fair looks different for different people. There's like some saying, I can't remember what the saying is, but
I don't know, but I like that. We need to look that
there
up.
is a really cool saying. I can't think of it right now. Like fair is different for it's something like that. But like trying to
Something great.
explain your job is going to look different than what your younger brother's job is because you are different kids. You're different people.
Yeah. And we haven't really had a lot of like bickering about who's doing what job. And I think just because of
You've
the
had it,
layout of things, of
you've
like,
had it
hey,
in
in the
place for
week,
so long. Like
yeah, and just
initially, I think my kids are going to be shocked. They're going to be like, what? We have to do work? Or it'll be cool for like 2 days. And then like you have to remind them this isn't going away. This is like going to be our new normal. For your
yes,
3-year-old, do you use like pictures on his chart?
I do. And I think visuals are great. I
Probably
mean, a
for
great,
any age, right?
right? Yeah. Um, and so several of our kids have visuals on their chart as well. And I think that's just that one more reminder, that one more
Mm-hmm.
words don't stick in their heads like a picture does. And so
Mm-hmm.
having those pictures there is super helpful for them.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that was an inspiring momversation. I don't know about you, but I am ready to go check out the toys in our kids' room and start decluttering right now. I hope you enjoyed this part of the podcast. Stay tuned for next week where we are gonna go over part 2 of her systems. This is about meal prepping and how to find time for yourself in the midst of motherhood. And until then, I want to remind you that everyone burns their first pancake, so just keep flipping.